The topic of the panel today is scouting. So what is the next big Israel solution that large financial institutions globally are seeking? We'll get to that in a moment, but I thought it was a worthwhile topic and a great opportunity for KPMG to make an important announcement. So this morning, on behalf of Jeremy, Warren Mead, who's my global co-lead of Fintech, and the rest of the KPMG Global Fintech Leadership Team, I'm absolutely delighted to announce this morning in Tel Aviv that we have acquired Matchy, which is an online matchmaking and fintech innovation platform. So if you're a fintech innovator in the audience seeking a global shop window for your capability, then Matchy is for you. Alternatively, if you're a large or a small financial institution, whether a bank, insurance company or wealth management organisation, looking for market-tested and high-quality fintech, then Matchy is equally for you. So we're absolutely delighted to welcome David Milligan and the team at Matchy to KPMG. To find out more about Matchy, David Milligan is here today. He has a stand at the conference, so I encourage you to go up and say hello and ask a little bit more about Matchy, and equally you can go to matchy.biz as well. So thank you for that. So now we're going to get on the topic of scouting. I'm going to take a seat and we'll get things going. Can you hear me? That's fine. So the topic of the panel is scouting, and we've got a fantastic panel here, very diverse. We have a bank from Germany, from Australia, from the UK, but a global bank, and obviously India. So we're covering the Asia Pacific, the subcontinent, the UK, and of course Europe. So thank you for joining me today. We're going to get started. I think it's important that we don't rush to the solution, i.e. what the fintech capability is. I think we're going to start with what are the strategic priorities that large financial institutions have that they feel could be met by fintech or global innovation. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists to share what are their strategic priorities, whether it's, as Jeremy mentioned earlier, confronting the growth challenge, enhancing customer experience, dealing with regulatory issues, or looking at productivity measures. So I might start with you, Deepak, the things that are important to your organisation in the context of your priorities.
So we are relatively a young bank in India, but still we are the fourth largest bank now. So when I say young, it's about 15 years old. I think some of the things that we have been looking at is definitely the first and most important is how do we transform our existing business. That's where we are looking at areas around cost efficiency, process efficiency, customer experience, and reduction of the turnaround time. The second area, which is our top priority, is the business model innovation. And this is where we are looking at creating simple products, easy to use products, digital first product. Because India being not just a mobile first country, we are the mobile only country. Because that's the only way a large percentage of Indian population connects with the digital medium. So creating and building the solution which can be delivered end to end using the mobile as a device is where our focus is. And the third is to be future ready, where we are looking at the set of technologies right from the cognitive machine learning to AI to understand how each of these can play a significant role. So it's a tech stack which we are looking at and finding the sweet spot in banking. So all the three, and I think I've had wonderful interaction with the teams out here. We already work with a couple of fintechs and we are planning to engage with a lot more, and hopefully by the time I leave, we'll have many partnerships from here.
Great. I might turn to you now, Michael. Obviously, you're here this week. I know the Barclays Techstar Accelerator culminated with its demo day, I think, on Tuesday. So just interested in your perspectives.
The most important thing remains cyber, and that's where our main focus is, particularly in all sorts of control, making sure that we have resilient, safe, stable systems. There's still an enormous amount of investment that goes into what I'd call controlled productivity, where you have to reduce the dependency on the legacy and take out process and take out costs. We're still operating at about a high 50 cost-to-income ratio, and we really need to get that down to closer to 30 if we're going to compete at scale. Where we can free up in terms of capital for innovation, we look at things that are going to add value to the customers, and at the moment that looks to be mainly in artificial intelligence and the algorithms that give better convenience and value for customers around advice and risk management and scoring.
Kathy?
Thank you. So just for the benefit of the audience, Westpac is one of the 4 large banks in Australia. We've got about 14 million customers and 20% market share. We have an institutional bank, business bank, a consumer bank and a wealth division, so cover the whole extent of financial services. We are, like many banks around the world, going through a very large transformation project, but we see ourselves aspiring to be one of the world's great service companies, and so the transformation is very much about improving the customer service to such an extent that we can deliver on the customer aspiration for what we call Know Me, Empower Me, which is about an omni-channel banking experience, and what our CEO refers to as Bank Wow, which is, deliver something different and impress me. So that's the strategic objective. Some of the biggest challenges that we're facing whilst we're transforming the organisation is how do you ensure that when that work is done, the world hasn't changed? And the biggest change that we're facing in the Australian market at the moment, similar to what the UK is already going through, is what we refer to as open banking, and where customer data becomes shareable and it's much easier for people to switch their bank account. And so from a Fintech perspective, it's about what is the new ecosystem that allows us to best take advantage of that open data regime.
And Remy.
First of all, is it working? Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I love the spirit of Israel, the startup nation. It's great to be here. Let me give you an answer on 2 levels. Yeah. First of all, probably as all of us here, we're looking for disruptions. Continuous improvements, I think most of us are quite good at. So what we're expecting from the fintechs are ideas which are out of the box and which banks cannot copy easily within a reasonable time frame. So that's the first thing. Second, when it comes to functional areas, I think banking has been ridden to death already in terms of a product idea from the fintech space. And what we're looking at is brokerage. What we're looking at is investing and trading. Fresh ideas that will increase the share of customers possessing, investing in securities. In the long term, no one can beat capital markets. Yeah? Right now, with interest rates at the level of 0 or negative in Europe, there is no alternative to capital markets. So, dear fintechs out there, if you have fresh ideas from the brokerage area, trading, investing, please reach out to us.
Maybe, Remy, I'll start with you. Now, given those strategic priorities, what are the emerging areas of fintech or particular technology capabilities that you're most interested in at the moment?
Lots of it has been said already. So obviously it's artificial intelligence, especially because of the regulation that we're facing in Europe. So under PSD2, the banks can either be transformed to infrastructure providers, if they have no fantasy to generate value around their banking services, or the other area is to become something which we call smart financial assistants. And to become a smart financial assistant for the customer, we need the intelligence. We need to pull in the data from various sources. We need to build the logic around it and create something which I call a gravitational point. A gravitational point, which means a center, a smart center for all customer personal finance. And that means, like, for example, like car manufacturers today, that doesn't mean that we have to do everything ourselves, right? A share of own production in the automobile industry is about at the level of 40 to 50%. The rest come from outside. And this is, I believe, the role the bankings are need to get ready to take on under the PSD2 regulations.
Kathy?
So there's a couple of things we think about. It's a little bit, we've got a long way to go, and so I think we think about what is the capability that a fintech can bring to us. The learning is that things can be done faster, more cost effectively, and honestly better with technology that's built outside the organisation than inside the organisation. So we're really interested in investing and partnering in new capability, specifically around, and again, to enable that ecosystem to flourish, API builds. In terms of delivering on the customer experience, we're interested in capability that allows us to genuinely offer an omni-channel experience. And from a data perspective, we're really interested in data as a service and what are the opportunities to improve the data ecosystem through technology, but also how do you monetize data and new business models?
Michael.
Well, I really liked that answer. That was pretty good. So we look for those companies that can scale, and we want to take some of the very best ideas and make them applicable to multiple markets. We're not really looking for niche features or wee add-ons or just apps that are one of many. We're looking for something quite unique that will rapidly scale and be applicable to multiple markets.
So we have recently launched a very unique product in India that's called 811. That's derived out of the day of demonetization in India, 8th of November. And this is a digital-first, mobile-only bank. So being a successful analog bank, we thought of creating something which is a parallel bank and what we call a digital bank. So that's an area where we are looking at a lot of new area solutions. One is obviously how do I use the kind of algos basis what I capture, and quickly we can either do a lending or a credit or an underwriting decision on the fly for customers. So we are looking at companies who have built the kind of algos which can help us use constantly basis machine learning to keep looking at new data sets and qualify. Obviously, the customer experience is a large part, and there we are looking at not just cybersecurity in isolation, but looking at the ways of authentication, looking at proximity. How do you ensure a mobile first? That means no card-based transactions to happen, be it for cash withdrawal or for paying at a store. There again, as I said, I found some interesting companies. We are looking at the entire stack of, as I mentioned earlier, on the cognitive and the AI, because that's where we are spending a lot of time, and we think that's where the future of banking lies.
Great.
I think in addition, I mean, you made some great points, but in terms of what you really look at, I mean, there are hundreds of companies in payments, or 101 companies in very specific products. But I think what you really look for is a team of people. So there might be amazing data scientists, or they may be brilliant at writing algorithms. If they have those capabilities, they can do anything. And you want that team with that specialist skill, huge dedication, and the ability to scale.
And maybe just to move on to some of the success stories. I know it's sort of early days in the context of some of the partnerships or investments you've made, but maybe Kathy, just an example from Westpac's perspective of collaboration that you feel is showing really promising signs of success.
The one that I'd really like to talk about is a company that we founded and majority owned called Home Loans. So mortgages is the most important thing that our bank does, and more than 50% of our mortgages are originated by a third-party broker. And we had a strategy that said, would it be possible to disrupt the traditional mortgage broking market in Australia by offering a digital mortgage compare, search and origination function? And rather than doing that ourselves with our own people, we identified a founder and entrepreneur who had built a business before, who had deep subject matter expertise in the technology area, and shared our vision for what the future of mortgage broking could be in Australia. And by co-investing with him and allowing him to build that company outside the organisation, we've made some great progress, not only in learning about the disruptive kind of business model and what it actually takes to build a new company under a new brand, but also in how rapidly you can innovate outside the organisation. And effectively, what he's been able to do is, and his team has been able to do, is, as I said, do something much faster, much cheaper, and much better than we could do it ourselves. Now, success would, on the one hand, would be disrupting the mortgage broking market and winning market share in the mortgage market. However, success for me is also Westpac actually saying, we will take that technology and we will now use that to originate first-party mortgages for an absolute fraction of the cost of what we could have done ourselves. And so that's a very attractive model to us and something I'm really interested in finding in other areas.
And I might open that up to the rest of the panel. Any other sort of success stories or formative relationships that you feel are showing promising signs of success?
So we have done a lot of partnerships out there in the areas, as I said, again, on the credit underwriting, on SME side. But specific to Israel, I will take a company that we started working with. There's a company here called Apps Flyer. And we have partnered with them in this entire 811, which I just spoke to you about. Because this being one of the channels that we were building an entire performance-based marketing on mobile, there was a large investments in terms of the digital marketing activity and the kind of investments we were making as we launched this product. Obviously, we were working with multiple partners in terms of lead origination, right from likes of Facebook's to Google to InMobi on the mobile aggregation. And so we realize it's important when the moment we look at a performance-based or the goal-based kind of pricing to have a more app tracking of what customers are doing within the app, and depending on what got done, I mean, we pay our partners. And we found this solution, which is a fantastic one, because A, it brings in a lot of transparency, both between what we want to pay and what the partners look at it as a pricing in a transparent manner. And it also created the kind of a participative and shared success model around that some of these investments are made. So I think this is a classic case that I will quote from what we have done with a startup from here.
Great. And maybe, Michael, if I can ask you, you mentioned global scalability, technical competence. What else is it that you're looking for in aspiring fintech to work with your organisation?
I don't want to repeat myself. I basically answered the question because I don't think there's anything else. If we look at the last boom in fintech, and we saw through Web 1.0, PayPal became the most disruptive thing, and it's really evidence that these things have to be of scale. There are thousands of payment providers and rushing into the fintech space. There's thousands in cybersecurity, and eventually there'll only be one or a few that make it. So you've got to try and find that one that will scale. And what we have that Alibaba doesn't have, or that Tencent doesn't have, or Google and Facebook won't do, is that we offer credit. And so I love the answer from Westpac, where you go out and you find somebody that can create something super relevant for all consumers of credit, and make this data aggregation algorithmic capability that can offer the best price and offer something very specific to individuals, and almost be operating as the big bank in peer-to-peer. And that's a huge opportunity. But that type of algorithmic capability must scale and be applicable to the broad market. You can't just find niches and think you're going to weave that into your fabric and expect to be able to scale it on its own.
Remy, your perspectives?
Generic answer is that we're looking for things that we cannot build ourselves in a short time. Yeah. So basically, let me give you an example connecting to the previous question. We had once this idea to to tackle a huge group of people which do not own any securities in the German market. That's about 90% of the population. Yeah? And we had this crazy idea to offer our customers rebates for online shopping, and as they shop online, automatically invest those rebates and discounts that they receive in securities. So we sort of use a slogan for it as shopping for your retirement plan, so to speak. Yeah? And basically we were looking for a partner who would help us hook up all those couple of thousand stores to our system. Yeah? Banks are not very well known for their ability to make multiple deals in a short time. So once we found a startup that was interested in it, we were able to launch the product in 9 months. Which then is addressing 90% of the population that doesn't have the security. So what are we looking for on top of that is the fire. I think that the previous speaker mentioned, yeah, the fire, the passion. Yeah, we're looking for people who want to disrupt the system. Yeah? Banks can do incremental innovations. Yeah? Banks can do incremental improvement, and I don't know any bank that would voluntarily lie down and die. Yeah? So the first thing that they would do is the incremental improvements in front end and data processing, but what they cannot do is disruption, at least not very easily.
Great, and I guess we've got a number of fintech companies in the audience. What would be the tips or advice to them today? Maybe Deepak?
So I think most important is find a solution which really sticks to your target clients, because a lot of times I think we find there are solutions which get pivoted as you work along, and I think that takes much longer before you find your first or second client to scale, not just the proof of concept. Because we see a lot of POCs, but the moment we move from POC to full deployment, I think we find some challenges because either it's built on open source. Second is obviously a lot of solutions are on cloud, and banks have some challenges. So I think thinking forward, because if the solutions are built for in a B2B space where you need to work with bank, then I think address some of those concerns as banks have. And second is, I think if your solution can make your client successful, you will not just find an audience quickly, you will also move quickly in terms of getting the deal signed off.
Michael?
Create an algorithm that is a secret, but that causes the network to get some additional advantage. So for example, you gave an incredibly good example. That algorithm didn't exist, and people would think that banks wouldn't normally innovate around that. That is giving your platform super scale and is playing to your advantage and talking to all customers at scale and being super relevant at scale. So, you can create something with a bank to adopt in mind, or you can create something that would sit alongside the offering in Facebook. That's what I would build if I was building an algorithm, and I'd make sure that it was secret, but it gave the network that you're selling it to super advantage in terms of the content relevance for their new customer base. So it allows them to acquire a huge number of new customers and keeps their core product relevant.
We're really excited about the entrepreneurial talent that is flourishing in the fintech space. The people that we have the most success with are either if someone's building a new business which is potentially, disruptive to financial services. I'm very attracted to entrepreneurs who say, I'm a tech guy, but actually to be successful, I realise I need to be a financial services person. And for me, that indicates a real desirability and a commerciality in wanting to build a new business which is genuinely successful. From a technology perspective, and I was talked a little bit about, we're interested in partnering with people that can bring fresh thinking and capability. We genuinely do want to collaborate, and we do have some good runs on the board now of proof of our ability to collaborate. However, we are slower than entrepreneurs like to be, and so we look for people who are prepared to be slightly patient with us but realise the size of the prize is really big, which is maybe another way of what Michael's saying about scalability. And so in the first instance, it's people that we can build a relationship with and trust and can be adaptable over time and patient with us. In the second instance, it's people who are genuinely bringing technology that solves a customer problem rather than the other way around, and have a deep understanding of the customer problem that they're solving for. And I find that if we can get those two things right, the rest of it will really take care of itself, and I'll have less trouble convincing people across the Westpac group that we should be partnering more with fintechs.
And Remy?
Listen to the great panelists next to me. Yeah, that would be my advice. Yeah, there has been a lot of smart things said before me, and on top of that, never lose your passion. Yeah, never lose the fire. I think that's something that impressed me here in Israel, here in Tel Aviv. The fintechs I had a pleasure to meet and to talk to. They all were very convinced about their solution. Yeah, disrupt the system. Kill the banks, yeah? And while you're trying to do that, talk to us how we can do it together.
Make one more comment. That's fantastic.
Don't kill the banks. I mean, the talk of killing the banks is really not what a disruption is about. I don't mind the idea of competing with Amazon and Facebook, but a bank is specifically to assess a credit risk and provide credit. Now, when Apple or Amazon or Facebook and Google want to do that and carry the credit risk on their balance sheet, then they're a bank. And they should do that if they want to find the best risks, back those people into whatever household investment they want to make or whatever business investment they want to make, because we want to help people grow. So I don't think it's responsible to say that fintech's primary objective should be to smash the banks, because no one wins.
I had a feeling this was addressed to me, so if I had a chance to respond. A very smart person about 20 years ago said, banking is necessary, banks are not. And what one of the previous speakers has pointed out, there are lots of companies out there, yeah, that are looking at the banking business, which are not banks. Yeah, which are the four biggest banks? Yeah, the speaker, Tencent, Alibaba, not banks per se. Yeah? So what I think, I agree, absolutely agree, couldn't agree more. Banking services are necessary for growth. Are banks really necessary, especially with the mindset that they have? I'm not so sure. Will they die? Probably not. But what I meant is the mindset of disrupting the industry. Yeah? Don't settle for less. Go for the big one. Yeah? And that would be my advice.
Great. All I can say is mindsets are changing, and that's the very reason we are here, right? So,
Kathy, last word.
Yeah, I was just going to finish off with a plug for Israel, I think. So I've had the opportunity to travel to Silicon Valley, London, some of the other great kind of fintech hubs in the world. What has attracted me to Israel, and I haven't been disappointed in, is the desirability for you to want to export your innovation capability, and that's very attractive to us in Australia. So I just encourage you to continue to do that. We're a happy recipient of the innovation that's happening in Israel.
Great. So look, everyone please join me in thanking the panellists. Thank you, Remy, Kathy, Michael and Deepak.